We've been together pretty much for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I'm married more to Kelly than my husband, actually.
Yeah.
Kelly, as a former prosecutor looking into these cases, what new information are you looking for that can help convince a DA to take these cases to court?
So you're looking for cases with what I call a lot of play, a lot of potential, a lot of witnesses who haven't been talked to for a long time, who maybe their circumstances in life have changed to where they're going to say something new or different for the first time. So you go into a town with the idea that this case has a lot of play, and some of it's going to work and some of it's not, but you hope that enough works to where you can present the case to the prosecutor in a nice, tight, concise, strong case that'll make them happy to move forward.
And you really are the court of last resort for the victims, aren't you?
I think so, because they've been told you don't have enough, and they feel like people have forgotten them. So why not give it a try, and what do we have to lose?
We have victims all the time sending us emails, can you please look at this case? So the victims are very pro us coming in and trying to see if we can make a difference.
Absolutely. And I've walked in those shoes of the victims. It took 27 years to solve my 6-year-old son's murder, so I know what it's like to wait for the cavalry to come in. But you're putting that spotlight on those old, cold cases that have hit the wall.
Yeah.
Last year, the Cold Justice team worked with local law enforcement in Yakima, Washington. So let's take a look back at the case and see where it stands today. Early one morning in February 1997, young wife and mother Debbie Bailey was found shot to death in her car on a remote highway. Local law enforcement always considered Debbie's husband, Barry Bailey, to be a suspect in his wife's shooting, but there was never enough evidence to prove it. Despite the difficulties of the case, Detective Dave Johnson and Sergeant Judd Towle were determined to give Debbie's family, Carl, Pearl, and Scott Smotherman, the justice they deserved.
I felt compelled to work for them.
Phone records seemed to debunk Barry's alibi that he was asleep at the time of the murder.
A phone call came in at 11:19 to Barry's cell phone.
Last 43 seconds.
And with the aid of the Cold Justice team, new witnesses were found, proving investigators' original suspicions about Barry were correct, giving the team enough evidence to move the case forward.
You understand that you do have the right to remain silent?
On January 14th, 2015, Barry Bailey was arrested at his home in Idaho and charged with first-degree murder.
Carl, how are you? I am standing in front of Barry Bailey's house right now. I had an arrest warrant, and I arrested him this morning for the murder of Deborah. You guys give each other a hug, because I'm not there to give you one, and the hard part's still ahead of us, and that's getting him convicted.
Now I'd like to welcome homicide investigator and a member of the Cold Justice team, Steve Spingola, along with Yakima County Sheriff's detectives, Judd Towle and Dave Johnson. This case means a lot to both of you, doesn't it?
Yes.
Let me ask both of you, why did you reach out to the Cold Justice team?
You know, oftentimes, homicide investigators, you're so divided between your other cases, the ability to take something and focus on it for that many days with experienced people, it produces a lot.
That's what makes it work. You're forced to only work on this for our amount of time, and you never get the luxury of doing that, and it works.
The ability to have experienced people like Steve, experienced prosecutors, experienced forensics, all look at something and tell you you were either on the right track or not, it's very rewarding. They
already had a great case, and we just went back over it and took the list of names that Dave and Judd provided and re-interviewed everybody all over again, a little more meticulously.
And it's amazing how many people actually now, after a passage of time, are willing to come forward and testify.
Was he always your main focus from the get-go?
Yeah, he was the main.
He was the main person
within
of
the first
interest.
month or so.
You never for 1 minute thought that he would confess?
No, I've never thought he would.
Too cold-blooded, too calculated.
Right.
He's convinced himself.
Oh, yeah. He's drinking the Kool-Aid, his own Kool-Aid.
You know, Barry's an interesting guy. He's a self-centered sociopath. It's like he's the victim here. And, you know, you just got to kind of flip on the common sense switch when you're talking to Barry and filter out half of his baloney.
Lots of guys that you've interviewed over the years are that way, aren't they, Steve?
Well, that's why they've stayed out of jail for so long. They're manipulators. I mean, they manipulate their wives, their families, and I think they even intimidate their friends to a point.
And is he out on bail?
And when his initial bail, because of such an old case, the bail was low, $250,000. But Barry can't stop talking.
He's so stupid, y'all have him in custody, he still can't shut up, he's on the jail line, which tells you at the beginning this line is being recorded.
Correct.
And he calls up his own sons, who are victims of what happened, who he's lied to and manipulated their entire life, and tells the sons to lie to these guys and get their story straight when he tells them what to say.
And so we will now charge him with intimidating witnesses, and his bail is $1 million.
Fantastic. Not as smart as he thinks he is.
He'll testify at his trial, too, the fool that he is.
Well, as I mentioned before, I know you have grown to love this family and have a bond with them, and I think it's probably a great time to bring out Debbie's parents, Carl and Pearl Smotherman. Really nice to meet you. Really nice to meet you. Really nice to meet you, Carl. First, I got to thank you both for coming. I think it's really important for the relatives and families of victims to be able to talk about it, to speak out. And you and I belong to the same club. We're parents of a murdered child. So God bless you for never giving up. You had faith in these guys that they were going to close this case.
That they were going to keep at it until we had justice.
Tell me how you felt when you got that call.
The first, right off, I couldn't believe it. You know, I mean, just something that you pray for and that you hope for, and when it finally happened, I was just in shock, I guess, and was just elated, so happy that it's finally coming to maybe a close and justice is going to be served.
From the very first, well, I either knew that he did it or had it done.
I know that it's been a painful 18 years, without a doubt, but there's also 2 boys involved in here, your grandsons. I can't imagine the pain of this guy convincing your grandsons that he had nothing to do with it and that he was being framed and making that relationship between you and the grandsons so strained.
He moved them away from us, for one thing, so that we wouldn't have any influence on them, and, you know, he went to Idaho. So during their young years, we just didn't get to have that much to do with them.
Maybe things will change with this trial.
It already has somewhat. When we went to a bail hearing, it changed. We got to talk to the boys.
They were our babies. They were our first grandchildren. And, yeah, we'll always love them.
My prayers are with you, and good luck with those grandsons. They're going to realize how much you need to be in their lives. Last year, in the episode Billy Goat Hill, the Cold Justice team worked with local law enforcement in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to prove that LeBron Hollingsworth killed his estranged wife, Vicki. His trial ended earlier this year. When we come back, we'll take a good look at the case and hear the verdict. This is Cold Justice, Justice Served. Last year in the episode Billy Goat Hill, the Cold Justice team worked with local law enforcement in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to prove that Adolphus LeBron Hollingsworth killed his estranged wife, Vicki. His trial ended earlier this year. So let's take a look back at the investigation and find out the verdict. Did the case hold up in court? In May 1999, the remains of Vicki Carr Hollingsworth were found in a wooded area outside Chattanooga, Tennessee, known as Billy Goat Hill. Vicki had been missing for 2 years, and her family was convinced that her ex-husband, LeBron, was responsible for her disappearance.
Sooner or later, it's going to come to a head, and justice is going to happen with this man.
And in January 2014, LeBron Hollingsworth was indicted for the murder of his estranged wife and brought to trial. On January 9th of this year, the verdict came in.
Adolphus Hollingsworth's demeanor never changed throughout the trial. Silent and stoic, even as he learned his fate.
Guilty of second-degree.
Sleep.
Step out. Clapping and cheering resulted in 2 of Vicki's family members being kicked out of the courtroom Friday. Vicki's niece, Dakia Carr, says finally, after 17 years, there's justice.
Whatever he get, that's what he deserves.
I thank God that that is one man behind bars that can't hurt another woman.
But Friday's conviction is good news for the DA's office new cold case unit, working to bring the killers and other long unsolved cases to justice.
We just got to keep after it, and it can be done. So that's nothing but a good feeling.
Now we have Chattanooga Police Detective Bill Phillips joining us to discuss the case and the trial. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Really good job. I got to ask you out of the gate, when you heard the verdict, what'd you think?
I was expecting that verdict. I think the right thing happened in the end.
He's the one that's had their freedom for a lot of years who shouldn't have had it. How many years did you work on the case?
Pretty much from the time that Vicky was reported missing, so 17 years or so.
17 long years.
Right.
Why was it so important to prove to that jury that this guy had hidden his ex-wife's body?
If he was found guilty of second-degree murder, then the statute of limitations would apply.
When your statute of limitations is run for a second-degree murder, you can extend it out longer if you can prove concealment. And so by LeBron taking Vicky's body and concealing her on Billy Goat Hill, that gave us more time and extended it past the statute of limitations to where we were okay with the case.
Aha. Steve, let me ask you. You've seen hundreds and hundreds of cases. So you roll into town, you've got their support, you've got the DA's office support. Did you think there would be a chance to close this case?
LeBron was an intimidating guy. He's a tall guy. A lot of people in that town were afraid of him.
Yes.
But, you know, at some point, everybody just kind of ponies up, and it's time to go put LeBron in jail, because Vicky was a good person. She clearly didn't deserve the death that she died.
We did, in less than 2 weeks, what would have taken me months.
He and Neil Pinkston formed the cold case squad after all this happened, and he's now a convert and working on cold cases all over Hamilton County, Tennessee. Way to go.
Let's bring Vicky's son, Wesley, out here. Wesley Carr.
How you doing?
First, thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I always say it's great to have victims' families around to talk about it, and you had the courage to go and testify sitting in that courtroom with what Steve said was a very intimidating guy, a big, bad guy that was your stepfather.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was tough, very tough, to have not seen him since '97, and to be able to just see him literally walk feet past me is mind-boggling. Me and my sister woke up to a lot of yelling and screaming. Argument escalated to the bedroom, and from there he threw a pair of keys at her face.
Did he try to give you the stare down and intimidate you?
Of course.
Yeah. But you were thinking of your mother the whole time.
I mean, yeah, no problem. I mean, at that point in time, it's like, you know, we're here, we're in that moment. It's time for you to face reality.
You waited a long time to get up there, didn't you? Waited a long time to speak for your mom. So how did you feel when you heard that verdict come in?
After 17 years, you know, of waiting and hoping and wishing, you know, it's just an emotion that's a great feeling.
But your mom's looking down at you and saying, I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud of you for speaking up for me and never letting this case go. She's your angel.
Absolutely.
Just a few days after the verdict, I ran into Wesley's uncle, and he told me that Wesley's grandfather, Vicky's father, had passed away. He was unable to come to the trial because he was in the hospital. And your uncle told me he struggled until he heard LeBron was guilty. And so it was okay for him to go. And I think that just spoke volumes of what this means to all of us involved in this case, but especially to the family.
How nice. Grandpa hung in there till he got the word. Your mom would be very proud of you. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you for working so hard with the Cold Justice team, and look what you guys have done again.
Keep at it, Bill. Y'all know what you're doing. You don't need our help. You keep at it. Knock them out.
Thank you.
Now, in an episode entitled Sunspot Highway, we saw another case where a statute of limitations played a huge part. Stick around. Thanks for joining us on Cold Justice, Justice Served. Now, in an episode entitled Sunspot Highway, we saw another case where a statute of limitations played a huge part. Let's take a look.
In 1987, young mother Margie Pointer disappeared from Alamogordo, New Mexico. She was last seen at the diner that she carpooled from, and investigators always suspected foul play.
So did y'all ever feel like Margie would have just up and left her son?
Of course not.
17 years later, Margie's remains were found, confirming that she had been murdered.
The statute of limitations for second-degree murder has run out, so our job is to see if the evidence warrants a first-degree murder element of deliberate.
After interviewing witnesses, Margie's co-worker and carpool buddy, Pete Mullins, emerged as the most likely suspect. The day of the murder, Pete showed up unexpectedly at a hunting lodge, less than 4 miles from where Margie's remains were found.
Was there anything unusual about him?
Yeah, I know he was scratched up and he had something wrong with his thumb.
She's trying to make him let go.
Scratch, scratch. So a minute and a half of consistent pressure, never letting go. How is that not deliberate? This is a good case.
The DA felt that they had not met the burden of proof for first-degree murder.
She doesn't want to do it yet.
Oh, man.
Lieutenant Schoolcraft vowed never to give up.
We'll have to try to find some more stones out there that I haven't turned over yet. It hurts my heart. We're right there. It's like somebody coming out and stopping and saying you can't go any further. This is where it stops. Well, it doesn't stop here. I'm not done.
Joining us now is Lieutenant Detective Roger Schoolcraft of the Alamogordo Police Department. Was she always listed as a missing person, or was there any hint of foul play in her case?
No, sir. Originally, she was listed as a lot of our victims are as a missing person. But a lot of things just didn't add up right off the bat.
Her remains were there in the ground for 17-plus years.
Yes, sir.
How hard is that to get some evidence?
There was absolutely hardly any evidence whatsoever.
We didn't even have a complete skeleton. There was just pieces of bones that they found, some rib, you know, that type of thing, and I think a shoe that we never even knew really if it belonged to her or not.
So you had to go for first because of the statute of limitations on second degree.
Yes, sir. It was all or nothing.
When we went to tell Jeannie that day, as he started to tell her the bad news, you could see the devastation on her face. It's awful. I can't even tell you how awful that day was. It made me want to quit. I'm sitting there thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore when it doesn't turn out the right way.
Roger, I know you've been working very hard to change the law in New Mexico so that no other detective ever has to give that same news to another grieving family. In fact, Margie's sister, Jeannie Dockery, actually joined you recently in Santa Fe. Let's take a look.
We are in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we're trying to get House Bill 172 passed the state legislature, specifically targeting the state statute on second-degree murder, which currently has a 6-year statute of limitations.
We all feel strongly that there should not be a statute of limitations on any murder.
Next on the agenda, we have HB 172.
Most crimes of murder go to the jury with this question: is it murder in the first degree or is it murder in the second degree? And if they find them guilty of murder in the second degree and it's over 6 years from the incident, they walk out of the courthouse.
I began actively working the case as a cold case agent. We presented that case before the district attorney, and they said that, well, we feel like you have a really strong second-degree murder case on this subject that left us dead in the water.
I don't think any other family should have to go through what my family has been through simply because of a statute of limitations. The person who murdered her needs to be punished.
Representative James G. Townsend.
Yes.
Representative Cheryl Williams Stapleton.
With the numbers of 8-0, we have it to pass.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I feel very proud. My sister would be very proud, so it's a good day.
I can't thank you enough for jumping out of the ugly world of fighting crime into the uglier world of politics. And where is that bill right now?
Passed unanimously through the House floor, and then the bill went to the Senate, and the bill stalled out in Senate.
So you're going to go back next session. You got to go through the whole process through the Senate, and all those people have to wait for the next damn session, right?
Yes, sir.
I hope the people of New Mexico watch what you guys did and make their voice loud and clear to that legislature. But let's talk about Margie's case. You have a plan B.
Yes, sir. I reached out to the U.S. Attorney, and I've heard back from them very recently. And it looks like, hopefully in the near future, we'll maybe have a turn of the events in the case.
Go hard.
Kidding.
No.
Oh, my God, how awesome is that?
We got to say, usually the feds, the U.S. attorneys, don't come behind a decision on a state prosecutor's office. So for you to get them to do that, that is very, very rare.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
It's an honor. That's a good cop. So when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the lighter moments on the road. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cold Justice, Justice Served. We're here with Kelly and Yolanda, and also a couple members of the team, Steve Spingola and Alan Brown. I know you guys spend a lot of time with local cops like this, get to know them in a short period of time. What's it like working with these incredibly shy, unopinionated, demure women?
Where are you getting your information?
Kind
It's a lot. You got to have thick skin to ride around with this group.
Humor on the road is part of it, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's just a way of kind of getting through some of the, the rougher moments.
You also have to think about, when we go into town, like when we met Roger, he doesn't know us, we don't know him. So part of it is breaking the ice, making him feel comfortable, letting him know that we're not bitches and they're not jerks, and making him like us. So that's kind of the cracking it up thing.
Laughter is such a part of dealing with this stuff. So let's take a look at some of the lighter moments on the road.
4, 5, 6. If you keep, oh, how cute! That'd be a great blooper.
No answer. Some big dogs in there. Shoot.
20 step and poop.
Son of a bitch.
So ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3. Oh, God damn it, 4.
The best part was the goddamn it.
I don't want to be victim anymore.
She drinks Jack Daniels, though. You can't go too wrong if somebody drinks Jack Daniels.
There you go.
Hey, I'm a whiskey girl. That's what saved me, George.
You would have ordered some Mai Tai or something. I would have slapped your ass off the bar stool.
Kelly, watch out.
Oh, you scared the shit out of me. I made her eat turkey fries. Have you had turkey fries?
Do you know what turkey fries are?
No, what are they?
Fried turkey testicles.
Nice.
I'm so upset Zane is leaving One Direction.
You disappoint me.
You know how you cook them, George? But when you go to cook them in the deep fat fryer, you have to slice the ball open or it'll explode and pop all over your face.
Kind of like the way it normally happens, right?
What was that arrest for the farm animal thing?
That's bestiality? Yeah. That's not a crime in California.
We didn't try to catch up with you.
Oh, my God. They can hear us?
Y'all didn't hear our conversation, though, did you?
Not just hear you, you're being recorded.
You forgot there for a minute that you were wired, right?
I did forget. It was a new experience for me, for sure.
That makes me think of one other thing. A lot of people on Facebook keep asking, where's Johnny Bonds? I talked to him recently about the idea of coming back, but Johnny, he's with Sherry, and they're loving retirement. And when they retired to have a good life. We haven't been home for 3 years, and we are working 14-hour days, and this is not retirement, so...
And he really earned it.
Yes, he did.
Well, here's another case in which an arrest was made, and it faced a very different kind of challenge. Investigators in Fort Myers, Florida, needed to prove murder without a body or a crime scene. Watch this.
Rupinder Goraya and her husband Kultar emigrated from India to Fort Myers, Florida, hoping to live the American dream with their 2-year-old son. But in October of 2007, Rupinder disappeared. Kultar claimed that his wife may have left town to find a better job. But without her legal documentation or her son, that seemed unlikely. Rupinder's cousin, Ravneet, threw further suspicion upon Koltar.
He started dominating Rupinder and used to hit her as well.
Working with Detective DeStefanis and local law enforcement, the Cold Justice team reinvestigated the case from the ground up and located several new witnesses.
I'm like, you had the killer? And he said yes.
Confident they had their killer, Detective DeStefanis took the case to the state's attorney and in January obtained an arrest warrant. After the show aired, we had the opportunity to check in on Rupinder's son, Devin, and his adoptive family.
1, 2, 3. He has such an amazing personality, and he's so funny. I just can't imagine our family without him.
How is my grandma?
She always misses you, always. Love you, hon. I'll call you and talk to you later, okay? Ravney and I have become very close. We have a really different kind of bond.
And friendship.
And a very good friendship, yes. Thank you, Devin. I just wanted her to know that he was equally loved here. Sorry. I really...
Something stuck in your eye.
Yeah, something stuck in my eye. He's my heart.
The only positive side to this very sad story is, of course, that wherever Rupinder is, she knows that her son is with a very loving adopted family who stayed in touch. I mean, you know the system. Many times these kids get thrown into foster care, and this little boy's in a pretty good place, isn't he?
Definitely.
So we went into the case thinking that he was in foster care and he couldn't be doing very well because it's foster care. And then we met the family that adopted him, and I gotta say, cynical old us realized that there are families out there that really, really do that for the right reasons, and he couldn't be in a better family in the United States of America.
So, big question, what happened to Koltar?
He is currently in custody, waiting to see if his case is going to go forward through a plea bargain or through trial.
Good job on this case. Up next, one of the most disturbing cases featured on Cold Justice involved the murder of Lisa Bennett and her 6-year-old daughter, Kaylee, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Stay tuned. Alan, you worked in a busy shop, Houston. Homicide detective, 25 years. What's it like working decade-old cold cases?
Cold cases are harder. They're much harder. You're dealing with time. Your witnesses disappear in some cases. People's memories aren't as good as they used to be. Your evidence, if you have any for DNA and things like that, is degraded in a lot of cases, so you lose that opportunity.
When we come into town to work on a cold case, the family knows, the detectives know, that if we don't get to where we need to be, they're not going to open it up again in 5 years.
Right.
It's probably the last chance to do something with the case.
Nobody likes to tell them that, but sometimes that's kind of the way it really is.
Unfortunately, not every cold case investigation leads to an arrest. One of the most disturbing cases featured on Cold Justice involved the murder of Lisa Bennett and her 6-year-old daughter, Kaylee, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is a case that bothers me tremendously. Let's take a look at it.
In Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1993, single mother Lisa Bennett and her 6-year-old daughter Kaylee were brutally murdered.
I opened the door and Kaylee was laying there, and it was just devastating.
When the police arrived, they found Kaylee strangled in the living room and her mother suffocated in the bedroom.
I just don't understand how he can hurt a baby.
After speaking to witnesses, one of Lisa's former boyfriends emerged as the prime suspect.
I know she said that he threatened her and said he was going to kill her.
And his alibi quickly fell apart.
Franklin said that after you got high, you went out to a club.
That's a lie.
The Cold Justice team hoped that DNA evidence could help strengthen the case.
If this case doesn't come back with DNA, I'm going to cry.
In 1993, DNA testing was limited to biological fluids only. But today, technological advances have made it possible to get positive DNA results from something as slight as the touch of a hand. But the results proved devastating.
With the age of this crime scene, unfortunately, most of it is inconclusive. The plastic bag has more than 5 male contributors.
The team had to let Lisa and Kaylee's family know that the case would never be prosecuted.
The DNA evidence actually hurt us being able to go any further with the case.
So he's gotten away with it.
Come on, Jackie. Come on. I can hear my daughter. I can close my eyes and hear her voice. And Kaylee, too. Those are my angels.
I gotta say, when a child is involved, it's a different ballgame, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is.
That day, sitting there in that living room, telling that mother and that sister that we didn't get there, I can't hardly think of a worse time in my career.
And in this case, DNA was the double-edged sword, Yolanda, wasn't it?
It was. They didn't look at evidence back then like we would today.
No.
Okay, they would just touch a bag or touch the nightgown she was wearing without realizing, oh gosh, 20-something years later, I can do something with this. I mean, who would have thought
Everybody
that's what
did
you had
it
to do
that
it?
way.
Exactly.
When you have that many different unknown male contributors on that important of pieces of evidence, you have beyond a reasonable doubt 35 times.
Right. We're going to be joined right now by Lisa's sister, Jackie, and Jackie's 3 daughters, Tracy, Lindsay, and Nicole. They have all said, with tears in their eyes, the toughest thing they've ever done on this show is to tell you guys that the case was never going to go anywhere. How are you dealing with that?
It's hard.
What really broke my heart the most was looking at your mother.
Yeah. My mom is a very strong individual.
I looked at her grace and her courage, and I said, I can't imagine being in her shoes, losing a daughter and a granddaughter.
Look at that little girl there. How could somebody do?
It's incomprehensible to me.
One day, whoever did this, they'll pay. You know, may not be here on Earth. They're going to pay.
That's right.
You have to believe that.
God will be his avenger.
Does that have a significance, the purple ribbon?
Yes.
What is
This is
that?
in memory of Kaylee. It's a daycare she went to. They had a candlelight thing for her and gave everybody ribbons.
Now, you mentioned that social media was very important to you after the episode first aired. You got a lot of support from viewers. So what did people say?
I mean, as soon as the show started that night, there was just comment after comment for days and days and days, and just so many people saying they were with our family and, you know, just felt so bad with us. And, you know, some person wrote America's mourning with your family today, and it's so touching to all of us. It was overwhelming.
You've done an incredible job keeping your sister and that little girl's memory alive. When we return, we'll get a sneak peek at the new series, Cold Justice Sex Crimes, and meet the 2 investigators who'll be working to solve those cases. It's going to be a great new show. Stay with us. Welcome back to Cold Justice, Justice Served. Since 1980, there have been more than 200,000 murder cases in the U.S. that remain unsolved. But did you know that each year there are nearly 300,000 victims of sexual assault? Now, according to some estimates, less than a third of reported sexual assaults are ever prosecuted. There's currently a backlog of hundreds of thousands of untested rape kits in this country. That's unacceptable. So that's why the success of Cold Justice has inspired a new series, Cold Justice Sex Crimes. Let's take a look.
One in 4 women are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. It's an epidemic that has to be stopped.
That night, I came so close to death.
When you kill someone, you take their life. But when you rape somebody, you take their soul.
I was so scared that it felt like somebody punched me. I couldn't breathe. I remember his eyes. They weren't normal. Like, he was definitely on some kind of drug.
I think that home invasion sexual assault are the scariest crime there is.
The door got kicked in.
He was saying, get up, and he hit me.
he was out to kill us.
Next thing I knew, he'd ripped my underwear off, and I started trying to get away.
This show will result in solving cases.
Just judging by how violent some of these sexual assaults are, the only way to stop these guys is to put them in a prison cell.
A rapist will continue to rape until he's stopped. We can stop him.
Please welcome former Harris County, Texas prosecutors Casey Garrett and Alicia O'Neill. Really nice to see you. Okay, Kelly, is this nepotism? Are these gals related to you? Or no, you've worked with them.
I met them when they were in their 20s and they were babies, and watched them grow up in their life and their career. And when it came time to find people to work on this show, I couldn't think of two better people in my entire career than these two right here.
Wow, what an endorsement.
She was really like a mentor to me at the DA's office. She was larger than life. She was an incredible trial lawyer.
And she ended up being really a big sister to me. I can pretty much trace every good thing that ever happened to me in my career to her.
She's got a heart the size of Dallas.
Wow. So she really is not just a legendary prosecutor, she's a mentor.
She is.
We were together at the office in the 90s, and that was very much a decade when women were breaking into a law enforcement type profession, having to find that balance as a female lawyer that, you know, that men don't have to think about.
You want to be assertive, not aggressive.
You're a lady first, and then you go out and kick ass.
Exactly.
What motivated you to take this job? You both had successful careers. You worked in the prosecutor's office.
It just was an opportunity to do what we did at the DA's office, which was help people,
right.
You know, and just really give sexual assault victims a voice and encourage them to come forward, give them a safe place to tell their story, and hopefully catch some bad guys in the process.
And why do so many rape kits go untested?
Resources. I mean, that's the simple answer. Funding. These agencies, they care about their cases, they care about their victims. They just don't have the money to go back and test all these kits.
They all pretty much work out of the state labs. That's where you get a lot of your time lag, is the labs are just inundated with work.
And if a rapist isn't caught because a rape kit isn't tested, what are the odds he's going to rape again?
Their recidivism rate is very high. Basically, they're going to keep raping women until we catch them.
They're working cold cases on homicides. You're working cases where the victim is alive. Sometimes the victim is very cooperative. Sometimes the victim has been in therapy for years and said, I just can't go through this again.
Victims don't come forward because we still live in a society in America where we blame the victim. It's staggering, really, but it happens all the time. And so who can blame them for thinking, you know what, my life would be a whole lot easier if I just tuck this away and move on? Please don't do that. You know, if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for the future victim.
Next victim.
Right.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between what we're doing and what they're doing is we have cold case murders where our murderers have sat there for 10, 20, 30 years, and they haven't killed anybody else. Okay?
Yeah.
Every day that ticks by that they don't test a rape kit or work on a case, that rapist is going to rape somebody else. So really, there's more pressure, it's more intense, there's more to lose to satisfy.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah. It's harder for them than it is for us.
And that's why you put this SWAT team together.
They're tough.
And you did a good job because you've already had how many successes? You haven't even been on the air yet.
We arrested 5 people on 6 cases. The DA was real pleased with everything and real eager to file the cases.
They're kicking some butt already.
You're making your mentor proud. You're making a huge difference out there. Go out and get these bastards before they hurt somebody else. So before we go, I want to thank you all again for sharing your insights and how you work these cold cases. Well, you've made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. Okay, don't forget to keep an eye out for Cold Justice Sex Crimes. It premieres in July. And we'll leave you tonight with a first look at a case the Cold Justice team is working on right now. Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody.
911, where's your emergency?
I can't get in the house with my husband. It's a fire, and I can't get in there too.
The firemen make it to the kitchen area, and what they notice immediately is that there are things piled on top of the body.
Someone knocked him upside of the head.
If you take blow number 1 and hit,
and then put things on top of him to set him on fire like he was a bonfire. So they're married about 8 months when she gets herself put on the trust.
And puts her in charge of everything.
Let's talk about Penny's lover.
He's just a slimy dude, man. He really is.
I said to him, I think you killed Frank.
A person that would do this to an 81-year-old feeble man is about